What it do, anime crew? Hey man, listen, today I'm going to be doing a rant about episode 1 of the Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder, as per the request of Aesop on Patreon. If you guys, for some godforsaken reason, also want to rant, $5 a month plus on Patreon, and I do a rant every month. So, the Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder. I have watched a little bit of Nathan For You in my day, but not nearly enough, and mostly clips of episodes. Probably only like 1 or 2 episodes, like even most of the way through. But it's really funny, and it's something that I've been meaning to get into. But then after seeing this, the Rehearsal, it's like, this is God tier. This is really, really good. It's not just comedy. It's deeper than that. You know, it blurs the line between actual reality TV depicting reality and like total fiction, fabricated, planned out events. It has unironically such a fascinating tone to it, with how like meta and sort of surreal it is that this can even exist. That such a bizarre premise can even actually happen in the real world, and the fact that it happened to be executed by someone who's so genuinely talented and funny as Nathan Fielder is fucking amazing. For those of you who don't know, the premise of this show is, at least what I can gather from episode 1, that Nathan goes around to people who are trying to get things off their chest or engage with social situations that they're extremely anxious about, something that they want help finding the courage to build up to, this isn't what it is, but the obvious example would be like somebody looking to confess to their crush, but they're just so afraid about how it's going to go and if things won't be the same between them, like that sort of thing. And basically he meets with them and he perfectly recreates the scenario down to like the finest detail of the location, rebuilds it in a personal warehouse, and then rehearses it with the person, going through every single possible variable and like perfectly curating the scenario so that it's down to as much of a science as humanly possible, and there is no leap from comfort that the person really has to go through to get this off their chest. They can do it with as much safety as you could possibly expect. But you really get the sense when they perfectly, uncannily remake this bar that this guy's trying to confess his secret in. And it just looks like the bar was just snatched off the street and placed into a warehouse with all black walls. And it's just so fucking weird. It's so uncanny. The vibe is so off. It feels so wrong. But it's also just really funny because this guy's not confessing to his crush. He's confessing that he lied about having a master's degree. And when he's first explaining it, he's like, there's one person who I'm nervous to confess to because they might say things to me that I wouldn't be able to forgive. And I don't know if we could be friends after that because they're going to say some terrible things to me. And it was like, to me, it really sounded like he was implying they were just going to start calling him like racial slurs. He's a black dude. And then he's like, he meets with her and she's just like, oh man, that's silly. Why would you be, insecure about that? We all have our own things. You're my friend. I care about you. And it just went like how a normal person would interact with that, So it was really funny just seeing the contrast between how it was in his head and, by extension, how they were all going to prepare for it with the mock scenario and everything, and then how it actually went. Because it was so much worse in his head. Some really funny things about the mock scenario. They had like a quick interview with the girl, and with the interview with the girl for like 30 minutes, they perfectly got a read on her personality and her speech mannerisms and what she talks about. Like, it's uncanny how much they fucking nailed what it's like when she talks about. She's like, oh yeah, my roommates have been pissing me off all day. And it's like, that's exactly what she says when she sits down. The real girl. My roommates have been pissing me off all day. I'm not in a good mood. And they just predicted it so perfectly. And you're like, holy shit, this is actually some really, really well put together stuff. It's quite analytical. It's just bizarre. The guy at some point likens it to Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. He's making his dream come true. He's giving him the golden ticket. And that really is so true. It's such a dream come true. Everybody wishes they could like rehearse these things a million times in their head and know exactly how it's going to go within reason. And this guy actually had that opportunity, but it's just it really just brings you to like slightly uncomfortable or at least unusual spaces of like feeling dishonest, you know, because at some point when you rehearse it so many times, even if your intentions are pure, you're like, all right, well, at what point does it start to feel manipulative because the ball is so much in my court? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm planning for every reaction and I effectively have a counterattack planned out beforehand for anything she's going to say, it's like, you know, at what point does this become manipulative? Is at least the feeling I would get. Not that this particular scenario had any chance of being manipulative. Like, this was just a guy trying to get something off his chest who, you know, was not trying to get anything out of it. Like, he was just a fucking goober. But that's sort of the feeling I get from the whole vibe and the conceit of the show, which is really awkward. It has a super unique atmosphere that's cut up with just amazing humor. The lengths Nathan goes to, the impractical lengths he goes to do these things is hilarious, because there are probably like similarly effective ways this guy could have prepared for this confession that didn't really require any direct rehearsal. If he just like talked to a therapist or somebody who's willing to tell him like, hey, like get to the real, you know, root of why he's overthinking this so much in the first place. Like, this could have been solved in a much more cost-effective way, but Nathan is just, you know, he's just going through the fucking circus to get it done. And I really like this one scene. They're trying to subliminally place in his head the answers to the trivia sheet, which they got. And at one point, he's like, they're just walking down the street, and it's supposed to be inconspicuous, and a lot of them are really funny because it's just, oh, these recumbent bikes everywhere. And this guy randomly says like, yeah, Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world, huh? Weird. And it's all like pretty obvious, but then they start walking by a crime scene. He's like, yeah, poor bastard shot 4 hostages in the head. I curse China every day for making fireworks. It's like so over the, like, there's so many. I mean, I guess it is kind of an obscure piece of trivia, but I can't help but imagine there's like way less conspicuous ways of subliminally putting that into his head. But you know, it's all for the bit. It just feels, it's like they're hacking life. It really is like they have all the materials and like they're fucking solving life. They're accounting for every single variable before it happens, and it's kind of terrifying, but it's really hilarious, especially because the people that they've chosen are just absolute, like, hilarious. I relate to the main dude, the black dude, because he's like pretentious, you know, like he wants to. He's like he doesn't seem remarkably well spoken, like you know, eloquent. I didn't get the impression that he's actually excellent at trivia or particularly insightful. He's definitely not super good with his own emotions, but you know, I mean, intelligence is such like a fickle and nebulous thing. I wouldn't like try to appraise his IQ or anything like that just based off of one episode of the show. But like, he didn't strike me as a super genius or whatever, but he really, really, really wanted to be seen as smart, and he was so irrationally hung up on the dumbest metrics of measuring his own intelligence. Like, after the confession, which he was clearly, you know, torn up about, he was like, well, you know, I won the trivia night. He was unwilling to cheat on the trivia night. That was like, he mentioned it being sacrosanct to him. That like no matter what, he can't lose this trivia night. He doesn't want this confession to bring down his trivia game because then he'll lose a trivia night. And it's just like, he's so focused on holding on to this bizarre, illogical source of intellectual validation that he's like entirely missing the forest for the trees. And you know, I think I definitely relate to that quite a bit. And it's also just really, really funny to watch unfold. Nathan's delivery on everything is just like so awkward and ambiguous, and you know, that's the sort of thing that gets laughs out of me. And yeah, I'm trying to think of any specific jokes that I thought were hilarious, because there were honestly there were several. I liked it when they were going over the worst scenario, and then she like and the guy acting as the girl like flakes out, or doesn't flake out, but she storms out actually. And everyone around him is like, he doesn't have a master's degree? Who doesn't have a master's degree? And then the fucking guy who's reading off the trivia goes, the loser for tonight's trivia is Core Skeets. It just zooms in on him and he's fucking devastated. It's funny. It's crazy the lengths people are willing to go to. It's crazy how much people are willing to trust Nathan Fielder when he's such a fucking awkward and conspicuous figure. It's really hilarious. The last thing I want to touch on is the fact that it so looked like he was about to confess his love to her, like from her perspective. I'm not saying that she actually picked up on that. They both seemed fairly, like they wouldn't be the masters of social cues, if you know what I'm saying. But this setup is like uncannily, like he's definitely going to confess to her. This is something serious. He mentions earlier in the episode about getting divorced with his wife being one of the bigger failures of his life, is how he described it, which is just insane. And it was like, it kind of felt like it was building up to that almost, even though it's not. And then he's just like, I lied about my education. I only have a bachelor's degree. I don't actually have a master's degree. I have a lesser degree than I let on. It's like, it's so fucking trivial and like clearly not going to cause some massive inflammatory breakdown. And I just, I love it for that. This show was amazing, impeccable tone, impeccable delivery, amazing concept. The Nathan Fielder had an absolutely all-star performance. The people they picked happened to be hilarious. His entire crew fucking murdered it. This was really, really god tier. And I do think there's something a little bit interesting happening here with Nathan perfectly curating his own treatment of his guests as they try to perfectly curate their treatment of other people. It puts them on both sides of the coin, and it's an interesting little exploration of like, what is preparation, what is manipulation, how much can you like feasibly crush as a variable, like how much can you really like put out of the way, and how much you just got to pull the trigger and swing the bat and go for it. Really funny stuff, really good stuff. I loved it.